We're just getting started here, getting things ready. Going to be going on live with Marcellus Barnes and call him up and get some words from him. Make sure everybody's having a good time in here. If you have any questions, make sure you ask him. So Marcellus is a 3D artist that I met at Rockstar. Didn't do a lot of background research on Marcellus because I kind of know him already. He's been, how long have I known him for now? We're at Rockstar. I think I met him in 2006 or something like that.
What's up, dude?
What's up, man? How are things?
Finishing up work. Like this.
Doing alright, man. I'm just missing here playing with the audio. And,
Okay.
so we haven't, jumped into it yet. So, I thought I could run the phone audio through Bluetooth, but it doesn't want to do that. I'm not sure how to do that. I've never tried to do that with this little setup. So I got like this just a regular Bose Bluetooth speaker, and I was just gonna run your audio through that to get it a little cleaner.
Okay.
But I can rock with this right now.
Alright.
So yeah, just so did you watch any of the previous ones?
No, man. I didn't know you were doing this.
No, yeah, it just kind of started up really, really quietly. I wanted to get a few started and rolling before I really started announcing them.
Okay.
Yeah. But all right, let's go ahead and just jump in formally. I think we're all good here. Just checking up the lighting and the sound and everything. So I think we're all good.
Alright.
All right, man. So yeah, this is the ADD experience, and real quick, man, how you been in general? You been doing all right?
I've been doing okay. Way better than last year.
Really?
So, oh, man, the freelance life ain't no joke. Yeah, man. Like, I think at some point, work started to dry up because everybody started hitting conventions.
Okay.
And
No, wait, hold on. You said work started to dry up because people started hitting conventions? How does that work?
yeah, because I do toy,
Right.
high-speed prototyping for action figures and statues.
Oh, right, of course. The toy market. Go ahead.
Right, but during the summertime, they'll all start hitting up conventions.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't prepared for that, so I was just sitting there for 3 months trying to figure out the projects to work on to keep myself sane.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I was that stressed out in a long time.
So why did the convention scene change up?
The convention scene was always there, but I think once McFarlane started to downgrade their mass of people that they used to use, then it's man, because they used to be a constant. It was all year round they didn't work. But once that constant leaves, then you got to hustle to find the next one.
So it wasn't. So it wasn't like a. So the entire industry, just not as many toys are going through the market.
Well, they are, but at that point in time, everybody's taking what they've been making up to those trade shows to show the people. So nobody's really pushing for new work for 2-3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's when I started driving Uber.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, man.
That was cool though. I got to see the city.
Yeah, you do what you do, man. So I'm over when the coronavirus thing started happening, and I started trying out some new projects last year. I started working at an art gallery, doing the thing kind of like Johnny Tran and Paul were doing over at Thumbprint.
Yeah.
So I started doing that and some other projects, and doing that kind of stuff. You're putting in a lot of work without a lot of immediate return.
Yeah.
So I really started. I started doing Target just in like my off hours.
Right.
And then coronavirus hits, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, can I still get back to Target? And they're like, yeah, yeah. So right now, so many places like galleries and art fairs, art walks, all those things just shut down, and that took out a bunch of my outlets. So when that happened, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm an essential worker now. Target sells food and whatnot, so that's what I'm doing.
Right on. So, like, how's the influx of people at the store you at? You guys control for that stuff?
So there's a lot of people that come through. It's pretty much every morning there's a line of people around there, and it's I mean, I don't know. Have you been to one of the Targets around your area?
Nah, I just go to Sprouts and come home.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. People come in there. They're grabbing board games. They're grabbing tennis shoes for their kids. Sometimes, and it's gotten better now, but sometimes they try to calm everything down and make everything, less like a club. Just people going to hang out or whatever, which is what happened right at the beginning. But now it's kind of calmed down and things are normal.
Yeah, it got kind of crazy there for a minute. Like, I remember right before it popped off, we had just come back from Denver.
Okay.
And I'm like reading the news. It's like, this shit might be real. So
yeah.
I started making trips to the grocery store. And the last time I went, I'm like, I wanted one of those Popeyes chicken sandwiches. I couldn't do it. I'm like, yeah, I gotta let you go. Because that's the ritual.
Yeah.
You get up Popeyes, then you go to the grocery store. Get to the grocery store, and they got no eggs. All the dry goods are gone.
Yeah, exactly.
No pasta. So I go to the frozen section. And I mess up and I got these gluten-free breakfast wraps. Terrible.
Yeah, made out of lawn grass and
God,
and tree bark.
How do you make this? Just give me some vegetables. I don't need food.
Yeah. No, it's a crazy situation, and speaking of which, Johnny Tran from Thumbprint says to grill that MFer. Those are his words.
Oh, the gluten-free stuff?
No, just no, grill you. You're the MFer, not the...
me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Right on. Oh, yeah, I remember I wanted to talk about. Dude, did you see that new Shaft?
I have not seen the new Shaft. Is that something
I had it saved. I don't think you should see it because it's terrible.
Really?
That shit is terrible, dude. Like, the one from 2000 was good. It was kind of campy, had the little black exploitation thing.
Right.
It wasn't.
But you're saying the one.
Intelligence.
You're saying the Shaft remake with the not remake even, but with the family, the generational one. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So that one was garbage.
Oh my god! Like, there was one joke where the dude was like, "You think I'm not black because I have a bank account, a high credit score, and I wear clothes that fit?" And Shaft was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What the fuck?" How's a high credit score not black?
That sounds not great.
Oh my god, you don't think it? Oh my, like if they took it seriously and they got like Michael B. Jordan. Okay, I'd have been down with that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, who the hell wrote this?
So wait, did you watch that during when the lockdown started, or was that before?
This was like last weekend we watched this.
Okay, yeah, getting into your coronavirus movies, right?
Right, yeah. But then I had to pop some edibles.
Yeah.
Like I can't get through this without weed.
It's tough, man. I'm like changing up a lot of my eating habits and everything too. I found out that there are these, just little things. I found out there are these cupcakes that I like. Speaking
Which
of
one's those?
I pick them up from Target every once in a while just to pass the time, right? But I'm on such a regimen now that I noticed I was getting like slightly depressed after I ate some cupcakes. And normally I'd be able to go to the mall, do whatever, but I'm just sitting here staring at the wall in my thoughts, and I'm like, what in the world has changed such that I'm having a little bit of like soft, mild depression? That happened to me like a week and a half ago, and I'm trying to think back to what happened a week and a half ago, and I'm like, all right, whatever, screw it, I'll go finish those cupcakes, right?
Yeah.
I finish them up, and then I get through it. And I'm like, ooh, all right, whatever. Next couple weeks, I do the same thing. I'm like, yeah, let me just grab some cupcakes. Same thing happened, and I was like, holy crap, are these depression-inducing cupcakes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the cupcakes though, man. It's like you can't go nowhere.
Yeah.
I got some downtime. I might as well just walk over to the fridge and look inside. Ooh, I wouldn't mind having a Totino's pizza roll. Why would I have one? I'm gonna eat that box. It's like the COVID-19 gets packed on, man.
Yeah, man.
That shit is real.
Yeah, man. You can catch some stuff like that on a bargain too. Like, it's kind of crazy. If you, I was talking with some friends online. The bargains that they're giving, just for random stuff, because the food chain is messed up. The trucking industry and the boating, shipping, all that's kind of messed up. So suddenly all this stuff is going on crazy discount, and it's getting just all mixed up. And you're walking in, it's like, wait, $2 for the family pack of Totino's rolls? All right, I wasn't down for eating pizza rolls, but I'll get that. No, it's really strange right now, and actually that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast now. The time to sit and think and refocus. I try to, whenever something happens in my life that I don't want to happen or don't expect, I really try to sit back and say, okay, how can I ride this in the best possible way?
Yeah.
So with this, I was like, people need someone to talk to. I'm not like I'm a psychotherapist or anything, but just being able to connect, wanting to connect. I thought there was a need for that, and I'm not really terribly interested in talking to a lot of people, being the introvert that I am. But I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and put that podcast back out there, see how it resonates, and it's not like I dislike people. I like people, but I was like, people don't run off and say he doesn't like people, but that's not exactly what I was getting at. But no, I wanted to try this out. I'm like, you know what? If I was online just talking noise, they wouldn't have been as receptive about it before, but they are now. So I started up I started this podcast, and different from the 8-Bit Cubist podcast, and I'll get to that in a second. But I started up this podcast called the ADD Experience. And I wanted to just get down, talk to people about the three things that I'm really pretty well versed in, I think: arts, design, and development. So I just started making a couple episodes, didn't really tell too many people about it. And, I'm trying to get the pipeline through so everything flows smoothly. So when people go look for it, they're like, oh, okay, you got 6 or 7 or 9 episodes in, and they're all not excited about it, but they're all like, okay, this is a legitimate thing, as opposed to, saying, hey, I've got one podcast in there, go ahead and listen to this one episode, and yeah, hopefully you'll like me. So I want to get a couple in before I really start pushing it. Yeah, it's a whole different format. And now, while you're one reason I definitely wanted to call on you and a certain group of other people is I wanted to make sure I got the original Payao podcast people in the queue first.
Yeah.
And I was actually trying to think back to when that podcast kind of got started, and I had trouble remembering exactly when and how.
2008.
It was 8? That late? Okay.
2008. That's yeah.
So wait, when did you get to? Because we started that during our time at Rockstar Games. I was a designer at the time, and you were a 3D character modeler. So when did you start? Because I remember you coming in. I don't remember the year it started. 2006, 7.
I think 2005.
5. Okay, 5.
No, 2006. Yeah, 2006.
Okay, so now how did you end up at Rockstar Games, by the way?
Yeah, I think Nick called me and asked if I wanted to come work there. I'm like, hell yeah. I just getting laid off from Gigante.
You knew Nick from before, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
He hired me at Midway.
Okay, so you were at Midway, and then you went to Studio Gigante?
Studio Gigante.
Uh-huh.
And then that studio closed down, so I started working advertising, which was kind of nice.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, that's like never on my resume, but I was there for a month.
Okay.
It's a spot called Alter Image in Chicago, and a guy there was developing the visual effects side of the print advertising.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he would, anytime they needed a 3D object in their magazine spread, they would come to him and he'd make it up. So he was developing that, and he pulled me in to help out. But I ended up going to Rockstar.
All right. So you got the call from Nick, and you'd worked with him before. You move over to Rockstar, and so you hadn't left Chicago before then, in terms of professionally.
Right.
All right. So how was San Diego for you?
Man, San Diego was the shit.
Oh, okay.
I moved to this spot called PB.
Yeah.
And it was like
Pacific.
I think I moved there.
Pacific Beach, for those who don't know.
Beach. Yeah, it's a little beach town in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear to God, dude, like I came there in the middle of spring break. So like every weekend, I'm on the beach just hanging.
Man.
And like from Wednesday till Saturday, I was partying every day.
No, that's Pacific Beach, man. That place was great.
Yeah, but like not for professional.
No.
Life. Like I think once I got out of there, I started developing my skills again.
Yeah.
And like the further away from the party life I got, the more I spent just sharpening my sword in my room. And let me go back. I remember you saying a few minutes ago that you were an introvert.
Totally.
I would never have got that from you, dude. You will always gather people up.
Yo, it's well practiced, man. I do that as a practice. To roll back, I don't know what year that was. Was it 2001? I think it was. I was on an internship, right? And in Minneapolis. And a friend of mine who I had always talked to about stand-up comedy, and you know, he told me, his name is John Mile, great guy. He told me he did stand-up comedy, and I heard, okay, yeah, that's cool, man, whatever. And I had seen a few of his acts before. You know, and I was like, okay, you know, dude's got a few acts and everything. Cool. He's a friend of mine in the Computer Information Systems department over at Florida A&M. But But you know, it's one of those things where it's like someone's right next to you and they're doing something, and in the back of your head, I don't know, maybe it's that, you know, male macho thing that comes up. You're kind of like, man, I can do that shit. He ain't nothing, you know. I mean, you know, he's my boy and everything. He's well practiced, but I'm sitting here talking to him like, yeah, Richard Pryor. I remember that set he did. Oh yeah, I remember that too. And like, I know what he knows. I can do this. You know, so we have this internship, right? And there's and you know, he's like, everyone's figuring out different things to do during the internship, because there was, like 40 of us on this internship, in different parts of the company and the city. So we're up there, and you know, John's up there too, at the same time. So I'm like, hey man, what's going on? I said, hey, I'm going out to this comedy club. It's like, you should come through. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I'm going to be performing. And in the back, I'm like, hold on now. He's going to be performing at a comedy club. Like, it was okay when we were doing it, and like when I was, watching him do the thing in college, where it's like the little college, community shows, or the little laugh fest they have or whatever. But doing stuff like at a real comedy club, that's what turned the fire on. I was like, hold up now, I need to take action on this one, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? And I couldn't justify just wanting to one up and compete with the dude. I couldn't justify that in my heart, so I was like, you know what? I think this is a good opportunity for me to learn how to stand on stage and face my fears and learn how to speak eloquently to people and get more out of my introverted stage and just, learn how to talk people up. That was the whole rationale. But in the back of my head, I was like, man, this motherfucker, I can take this dude out. He ain't got nothing on me. So yeah, that got me. That put me on a whole new trajectory of like talking to people, getting out there, and just being sociable. But yeah, I totally. After when I do all that kind of stuff and go out and talk to people, it really tires me out. I just want to go home and paint, be in the books or whatever. But so yeah,
tell me about it.
Yeah.
Like I think I kind of worked on it too.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was at the bars, I had to like figure out shit to say to people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when you talk to a girl for the first time, you're like, "Oh, those nice shoes you got. Where you get those shoes from?"
Yeah.
But like, it's the same thing. Once you get to a certain point, it's like I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like, right now.
Yeah. No, what's funny about Pacific Beach is I really didn't have any connections down there aside from you guys. It was you, Josh, John Girak, and I think you guys were the primary guys I knew down there. But I would actually roll down there and just practice hanging out with people because I had no other connections to that area.
Yeah.
So I would just like roll up on some place and be like, "Hey, how y'all doing?" Da 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 da. Get kicked out of a bar or something and be like, "Okay, well, I'll try something new next week." And it was just a weird little practicing thing I did down there. But I wouldn't have done that if you guys hadn't introduced me to that area.
Okay. That's one of the main things I realized about San Diego when I got here is everybody said they are friendly and easy to approach. Mm-hmm. Like in Chicago, you got to practice that mean mug. What the fuck you smiling for? you need to let them come and touch up those pockets.
Yeah. Hey, what's funny, man, is I noticed that about Chicago. It's got that vibe. I traveled up there for a convention, the C2E2 convention, one year.
Oh, okay.
And I thought it was just the vibe was definitely different. I couldn't come with the California, "Hey, how you doing, buddy?" kind of thing. I was just like, "What's wrong with you?" So
right.
somewhere in between, like the hardness of New York and the straightforward from Philly or something. Yeah, Chicago is in there. But it's a great place though. I went to Michael Jordan's restaurant too. Loved it.
Oh yeah, I remember me and my father just like came downstairs. He's like, "You don't have to go to school today." I'm like, "Oh shit!" We went to see the Batman and Robin, and then he took me to Michael Jordan's restaurant. That was the shit.
So okay, so you're from Chicago. Were you born and raised there?
Born and raised Southside.
Okay, so you're born and raised Southside Chicago. How do you grow up in the art scene? And was it you? Well, yeah. Tell me about just give me a little bit on that.
Well, art for me was always there. I think it started the sketching stuff I saw on TV, and then I don't know what hit me first: heavy metal album covers or comic books.
Okay.
But that pretty much motivated. Like it had to be the metal because like that's the 80s where everybody was wearing like Iron Maiden t-shirts, Metallica shirts and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the dude on my school bus was the bully, and he always had on a Maiden shirt, and they always had the best album cover artwork.
Yeah, it was.
Like
it was kind of hard.
Yeah, I'd always go to the music store and just like look through those album covers. Like, oh man, I can't wait to buy one of these CDs. It'll be awesome. Yeah. And then later on, the comic books hit me. And no matter what school I went to, you could always find a group of people that love comic books. It was cool because I loved drawing them.
Right.
And so it was like I just started out copying that shit. And thankfully, I found this guy named Mark Texiera, who had this real loose sketching style.
Wait a minute. Mark who?
Mark Texiera.
The comic book guy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, go ahead.
And he, because before him there was like Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
And thank God I found Mark, because my goodness. Like I was, at one point I would actually draw forearms with like 18 muscles in them. I didn't know any better. And apparently Rob Liefeld didn't know any better either.
No, he didn't.
So like that was it was crazy, man.
It kills me.
Bouncing from artist to artist.
Yeah, it kills me how artists really just like he's the go-to of don't be that guy.
Yeah, and like hopefully you keep doing art long enough to realize that. But at the time it was fresh.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the style was just it jumped out with because I was on X-Force. I liked his
oh hell yeah
stuff with the New Mutants and all that. So when that stuff was happening at the time, it was just like, oh man, this is crazy with him, McFarlane, and Jim Lee. I just remember there were so many lines in their work. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, so many lines.
Yeah.
And then I found Jack Kirby later on because I think he went over to Image, and I'm like, man, I like these clean lines here. A lot less work, you know. You can actually like vary up your line quality.
Yeah. So let me jump in. You were. So you're in South Side of Chicago, and was I don't know how I know how it was in Florida when I was coming up. There were, definite groups of people. I mean, like hardcore, kind of like these are the surfers, these are the skaters, these are your golfers, these are your music heads, your band heads. This is your whatever. There were really distinct groups when I was growing up in North Florida. And I'm wondering, how Chicago relates in that sense. Or how was your experience with it?
Well, as far as grade school, there was two different parts of that. There was the first part, like my first school I went to, it was like everybody was there. Black, white, Chinese, didn't matter. So that's where I got exposed to the metal. But the next school was getting closed down, so they moved me to my neighborhood school, which was like all with my brothers and sisters.
Okay.
And for like 3 years, I fucking hated black people, man.
Okay.
Because these motherfuckers like, what are you drawing that? What are you listening to white music for? And I'm like, motherfucker, you ignorant asshole.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I'll follow up on that.
She came from the blues.
Yeah.
Learn your history. But like the cool part about that school is they treated Black history like mathematics.
Okay.
You got Black history. You got a Black history class every year, and you learn about that stuff. So, like when at the school before, it was like maybe you get 2 pages. Dr. King. Who's Malcolm X?
Yeah, he didn't exist.
Yeah, like they taught us about Emmett Till and like had nightmares. It's like that shit stuck.
So yeah,
like I remember. Say what?
So with you got the different cliques going on.
Yeah.
The different factions. Maybe that's a better word for gamers or whatever. But you've got these different groups going on. I know in Florida, it was we had Florida A&M University there, right? And that wasn't too far away from the high school I went to. And I mean the middle school and all that. But the thing about it was, and my brother put me on this because he went through it when he was younger. And I'm the youngest of 5, by the way. So, they had all gone through this. And one thing they kept telling me was that, like, hey, it's not like, there's not love for you. It's just there's this, if you're going to be about something, you got to flex. And I don't know, with the people I grew up with, I was like, what do you mean you got to flex? And it's like, no, you got to flex. If you're going to go into computers, you do it and make it work for you. If you're going to go into crazy art or whatever, you do it and make it work. And and it's weird. You get this, I call it like the pressure that turns people into diamonds. And that's how you got like your Little Waynes. You know what I mean? Where if you're gonna go do your skateboarding, color your hair, do whatever else that's not traditional, you got to go all in and let them know.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where we get a lot of our best talent from. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I think in grade school I was probably the only artist.
Okay.
The only person that was serious about the art thing back then.
Okay.
Then get to high school and you actually get art classes. So like, once I got there, I used to hang out with artists all the time. There's way more people than elementary school, so
of course
that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
So it's like every year you do a couple art classes, and I just ran out of classes, and I got into the fashion illustration class, and for a short time, kind of entertained the possibility of moving that way.
Fashion.
Yeah.
All right.
Fashion.
I could see. I could see that. It wouldn't have been my first choice, but I could see that.
No, it was cool, man. It's like I used to play Madonna and like design clothes.
Yeah.
It's like it was that, and then like I think I left. I always did comic books because I found another dude in the art class I like doing them too. So we do that shit together. But then we started getting into graffiti and tagging on walls. And my father found some of it and he's like, "Don't let me catch you tagging any CTA trains," because he worked for CTA
Oh,
at the time.
Okay.
But that shit fascinated me. Like you ride the train in the city, and like all these like just dope pieces on the wall.
Yeah. So were you the only like going the art route in your family? Were you pretty much the only one? Was there a model for you to follow, or was it just you?
No, it was just me. I think my father probably did it when he was in school, but I don't think that's not something you would pursue back there.
Yeah, I think I think we relate in that aspect because nobody was really doing the computer thing, because the arts thing wasn't uncommon in my family, but the computer thing was. So I think somehow I kind of tried to rebel against my family, like, you're all artsy. I don't like art. I want to go into computers because none of you understand that.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I ended up, going that route. But, I was always, like you, into the comics and arts and video games. And I knew from the beginning that I wanted to create something artsy or something in the arts with computers. It wasn't just like I was innate. I mean, they were very fascinating to me, but it's not like they were the end means, They were the end product.
When did you first start getting into computers?
Oh, God. I think I remember, gosh, it's such a faint memory, but the Pong system, the little, Sears, Sears, the big, I gotta explain Sears because not everyone knows Sears now, but Sears used to be this big department store that was attached to malls, and there's still some around, I guess, but they were just the shit. They had everything. And I remember there was this Pong system where you had like 3 different versions of Pong in one little box.
Yeah.
And my cousin got one. You know, I didn't really get what was happening, but you know, I go over to his house, and you know, he's like, "Oh, you got to come see it." And my brother's like dragging me. He's like, "Come on, man, Benjamin's gonna be crazy." You turn on Pong, and I'm just watching them, you know, bounce this little ball back and forth, and I'm like, "Holy crap, this is the greatest thing ever." But I have very faint memories of it, right? And then that just disappeared off the radar for a while. We actually got one in the house, but it was a novelty, and that kind of just disappeared. But then a little while later, you know, we got an Atari in the house, and once we got an Atari system, you know, I'm still like hella young. I don't really know what's going to happen. I only have like I remember these things, but I don't have like really intense memories of them. But with that Atari, that changed everything. I knew that like I could go away into a corner and mess with this Atari because my my one of my older sisters was out playing with was out, you know, playing with her friends and talking and being sociable. My my dad was doing his art thing. My mom was doing her music thing. You know, one of my brothers was into sports. He's always out playing football in the street or whatever. And you know, between all of them, you know, I didn't have much time with the TV or anything like that. I basically ended up playing with this video game system to kind of carve out my own area of the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that became my thing just as a young kid, and I was like age wise, I was a little bit separated from them, so they were all a tight bonded clique, and I was like kind of the offshoot, you know, the guy who came later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got my parents to admit that I was an accident, but you know, I love.
Yeah, I was about to say that too.
I was trying to get them to admit it, but they never would, and you know, it's one of the mysteries of life I'll never figure out, you know. But yeah, I got into it through Atari, and Atari kind of changed my whole mindset about that. And before Nintendo came around, you know, my mother she saw how attached I was to the Atari, so she got me she picked up an old computer, an old Commodore computer at a garage sale one day, and you know, she came in like it was the greatest thing on earth. Like, Benjamin, here's this computer. It's, oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing, and you know, you'll love it. And you know, look at the pictures on the box. You can do all this stuff. And I was like, oh my god, yes, hell yeah. You know, I'm just like freaking out. And one thing I do remember was my mom kind of having fake enthusiasm. And like while I'm setting it up, and you know, I'm scooting the TV back and I'm pulling out all the wires as a kid. I just kind of remember my mom and dad always being fascinated, like, look, Shirley, there he goes again. He's putting the wires together. How does he know how to do that? I don't know. You know, and they were just kind of fascinated. They were just kind of fascinated by me in this computer thing. So that's why they went and got it, to see what I would do with it. So once they saw that I had kind of an attraction for it, they definitely pushed it. And you know, as I said, it was a way for me to mark my own little territory in the family and in the household. That I just definitely took to it, and you know, colorful graphics and things like that. So yeah, that got me started on the programming route. And at some point, I said, you know, I'm going to make video games. And when Nintendo came out, I was like, oh hell yeah, this is the way to go. Definitely, I'm done. This is happening.
Oh, so you knew early. I didn't even know like Americans could make video games.
Oh, I didn't. I think there was an early episode of Nintendo, not an episode, an early issue of Nintendo Power that mentioned the game school. So I was like, oh, there's a school for this.
What's the game school? That sounds familiar, man.
I forgot the name of it. Why am I forgetting the name of it? Of course, when you're on live, you forget the names of stuff like this. But it was well before Full Sail. But Nintendo had like a little game university thing, and it was in Canada.
Oh, Canada, okay.
Yeah, because Nintendo had partnered with some company in Canada or some school institution in Canada to make like a video game feeder program.
Yeah.
So they would like train people to make video games, and they would shuffle them off to Redmond, Washington, where Nintendo of America was headquartered. So yeah, that's how that got started. But yeah, once I saw the school thing, I was like, oh, okay, school. I know how to go to a school. Both of my parents have worked in the education system, so it wasn't difficult for me to like ask them like, well, hey, this is a school. How would you go about doing this? And they're like, oh yeah, you just put in an application and I can help you with that. So I always thought of it as a possibility. Once I saw that magazine.
Right on. Yeah, I didn't like games didn't cross my mind until college.
Okay.
Like I wanted to be a comic book artist.
Mm-hmm.
I think up until my sophomore year, and I actually think I did like 5 to 6 pages of Urban Samurai, and like I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Because I wanted to tell stories, and my idea was, you don't need any word bubbles. You should be able to illustrate everything that's going down. And like I just want to get to the action.
I like that.
This monster's head off.
Yeah.
You know, so like my illustration teacher was like, "Did you ever think about getting into game art? Like, how the hell do you do that? Don't you need to know work with computers?" It's like, "Oh, you don't know how to do that. I mean, you don't need to know how to do that." So I'm like, "Dude, don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining." So I just went on a mission. Got every bit of animation software I could find. Just like sat in my room for about a year and a half. It's like gathering all these tutorials.
Uh-huh.
At the time, tutorials were shitty.
Yes.
Like you would find like something done by a guy that had maybe 6 months more experience than you.
Yeah.
And just trying to piece that together.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like the most important thing I learned from college is how to teach myself other programs.
2D animation? 3D?
No, 3D.
Okay, so you're starting with 3D.
And like, yeah, the one thing I got kind of glommed onto was a model, like, because I'd already started to get into sculpture during college.
Okay. So you're you're 3D animating in college. I do remember in college going to Barnes and Nobles and buying books and trying to figure out like what was being done and because my school was behind. Most schools were behind in terms of like the video game thing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I remember trying to figure out really basic stuff like how to get the keyboard to talk to, whatever other systems, and like if somebody brings their own keyboard, it's like, well, hey, this is a secondary keyboard. How does this even attach to the game? Just really basic stuff. But there was no way of knowing. So I totally get you in the whole, there's no internet forums to go on and be like, hey, how do you do this? It was,
dude, definitely.
It was really difficult to find information. I remember just being like stuck on a bug for, months at a time.
Yeah.
Like, well,
it took me forever to figure out how to UV map. Like, that shit was confusing at first. Cause like anyone I found was like a backwards way of getting to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that took about a year.
Yeah, for something that you look back and you're like, oh yeah, you just do X, Y, and Z, but
you just press a button now. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so okay, you're a game artist, a character modeler. Let me just call you a character modeler. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
Okay, so if somebody asks you, what do, you say you're a character modeler.
I usually just say I'm a character artist.
Character artist, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a full understanding of like what that community is about. So what separates you from like when you say you're a character artist? How do you guys separate each other? And I know that's a weird question, but
within it, within the within character artists, how do we separate?
Yeah, so like a lot of people like to think of from somebody from the outside, they're like, well, if they listen to rap and they're from the outside, it's like, well, you all sound the same, you know, until you start getting into it. With character modeling, or being a character artist, what's that like in terms of what are you expressing with the character?
You're trying to breathe life into it, give it a soul, and like hopefully when somebody gives you a character to do, they already have a story planned out, so you can kind of think about that in your mind when you're working on it. And plus, I don't come at it as a game artist. I come at it as a traditional artist. Cause that's what I learned first.
Okay.
So like that's what I carry. Like even now that you have things that produce digital cloth for you, if you don't know how cloth, the anatomy of cloth,
right,
then it kind of holds you back in giving that life to the character.
Mm-hmm.
And then even with the faces, you got to learn. Like I remember at Rockstar, they had this book with these close-ups of faces, and that's kind of what every time I look and talk to a person, I'm constantly looking at your face.
Right.
Like I mean, all the bones, what the bones are doing, where the fats land, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like all these different areas, like the hair, the texture, the sculpture, all that works together to give you this finished product. And like hopefully allows the player to not break the what's the word I'm looking for? The immersion.
Okay. You don't want it to fall into an uncanny valley or anything like that. Right?
Yeah, like uncanny valley. That's not it. Like trying to attack. That's not interesting. But like immersion, I mean, as in you can get immersion with playing a Zelda game.
Right.
As long as everything in that world fits.
Mm. So you weren't necessarily thinking about being lifelike or being relatable.
I got no interest in being lifelike.
Okay.
I'd say that's the depth of it right there. Like hell for me would be working at like Infinity Ward doing a Call of Duty.
Okay. Yeah.
And converting body scans.
Right.
And clothing scans. It's like, oh god.
Yeah. So one of the things I usually think about with design, and this is kind of what I'm trying to relate here, I guess, with art, is I want people to engage in the game without thinking that it's a game. You know what I mean?
Right.
If they're consistently thinking about, well, let me get 5 more kills, or let me get X amount of money. If they've got these very hard measures, like, well, if I just go 25 feet outside the city, everything resets, and you start getting into that kind of stuff with the players, then you're playing the system, you're playing the numbers, and you're not playing the game. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering with art, maybe that's what I'm partly hearing, where you want to just engage with the character and make sure it's fitting all in this one artistic idea presentation that you're immersed into.
Exactly.
Okay.
That takes a strong art director to like somebody that can look down and see all those moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like the better games I've played have been all encompassing, like characters, the world, all that stuff fits together.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do.
It is.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how difficult that part of it is. So I'm actually almost a little jealous of like people growing up with the internet, how much communication like online that they're used to.
Yeah.
Because we were thrown into situations, and it's just like the communication wasn't the same. Or
you had to find that group at your school that like X-Men.
Yeah.
Like now they can just X-Men Reddit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. A Reddit page.
It's like a ready-made community right there.
Yeah. So what's interesting? I like about your work, and part of why the character question really came up for me was because your work in particular was one of the first modeling jobs where I was like, I mean, you have your obvious kind of styles, like for 2D, you have something obvious like Samurai Jack or Powerpuff, the
Yeah.
Jindy Tartakovsky kind of style or whatever. And then you have your, everybody has these strong traditional art styles. But when I was getting into 3D and computer generated character models or character art, I didn't always sense that style, that feeling of it. And maybe that's because I was just outside looking in. It's like what I was giving you with the music example, where it's like it all sounds the same. A lot of it kind of looked the same to me. But you were one of the artists where I saw your work and I was like, okay, that little extra pudge on the hips, that the way the jowl.
Man, I gotta fight that down to this day.
I love
like,
that.
I was working on a female. And I'm like, man, why is she? Damn it, she's too big. Bring these hips down. Yeah, I still do that.
No, it got me realizing and really thinking about what I'm looking at and how these characters are constructed. So it wasn't as much of a scientific thing for me when I started looking at your work. I'm like, okay, there's a certain styling here that's happening that I wasn't really used to seeing before in your work. And it wasn't just the big booties or whatever. But like the jowls of the face, the way the musculature kind of wrapped around bodies and your stances and their poses. It started to connect with me, and I want to actually attribute your work to kind of allowing me to see that. Because then I started like comparing yours to Raph's, and not in a competitive style, but just looking at the different.
No, we definitely have different styles. I love his faces.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because like every one of the motherfuckers got dick sucking lips.
Oh. It's true.
Awesome.
It's true.
No matter who it is. Oh man, yeah. Have you seen his those new Star Wars Wu-Tang pieces?
Yeah, man. We've been talking about that because I'm gonna get on him, man. He got on the Wu-Tang all late, but it was good. It was a good series, dope series.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now how are you? You say you're doing. You told me you were working on a project with the WWE right now.
Not with the WWE, but like they had to let go of some wrestlers.
Okay.
And another company I work with decided to pounce on that, do some like Atlanta toys with independent wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like taking their heads and trying to sculpt like neutral and smiling variations to them, stuff like that.
Yeah. Now,
but it was fun to like bust out some heads every now and again.
So that's a little difficult, right? Because you're not going to get exactly what you're creating in on the computer. You're going to get something else that's a little different because of the whole manufacturing process.
Yeah, like after I let go of them, I don't care.
Okay,
you have to divorce yourself from that because like they can't paint them right. Like all the detail you put in there, they can't. They want that detail, but when they're printed out and painted, it's like you just lost all of it.
Yeah. No, I don't know if you remember Mike and Rick Gonzalez from Rockstar. They were the twins. They
did not remember.
I'll send you a link to some of their stuff. When you see them, you'll probably be like, oh yeah, those guys.
Okay.
But anyway, they worked with a toy company and got me on at some point because they started developing apps. And when they started developing apps, they needed somebody, with a designer to kind of come in there and lay out the design for the apps.
Yeah.
So when I got in there, I'm like, yeah, what are you guys doing? And they had this system where, they were creating characters, and then with the app of the character, and it would do some AR stuff. You'd see like lights and effects around this little toy character and everything. So it was a pretty cool project, multiple projects actually. But I was like, yeah, well, we can make this guy like this and this guy like that. And one of the artists would always raise his hand or just jump in and be like, okay, so for the second guy, we're gonna make his hair red. I'm like, why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep jumping in with these crazy changes? Like, just some really obnoxious change. And the guy's like, it's like, oh, well, these toys aren't going to be like the greatest thing. We're just going to send them out there, and if one guy has red hair, we can pretty much be guaranteed that that's that guy. So when they look at the face and they look at the side of the box, they're going to say, oh yeah, the guy with red hair, and that's it, because they couldn't guarantee that the character would actually look like anything they modeled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they just want
to simplify it.
Yeah, well, they had such a crazy process, and the toys you're working on are far beyond what we were doing over there.
Okay.
But it just gave me an insight into, that whole translation process. You kind of throw it over the wall to China or whatever manufacturing outlet you had. Ours was in China, and then you see what comes back. But yeah, divorcing yourself from it is definitely necessary.
Oh yes. Yeah, I sculpted Andre the Giant, and I ran across it on Instagram. I'm like, I wonder what the people think about it. They straight shot on it. Like it doesn't look anything like Andre. I'm like, you right? That paint job is ass.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to learn to live with it.
So where are you going now with or where would you? Okay, so let me back up even. So you did games, but now you're doing freelancing. Are you
back in a game company again?
Are you a hired gun or okay?
I started doing freelance work for Microsoft.
Okay.
At the start of the year, then probably like a week ago, I got hired on full time.
Okay.
So after these last action figure projects went out, I'll probably shift back to my own thing.
Is that preferable for artists in general, or?
What do you mean?
Like doing the freelance thing, or work on a contract for one game or two games or something, or?
For me, like it was just necessity. Like we bought this house like 2 years ago.
Congratulations, by the way.
Well, thank you. And once you get a mortgage, the hustle instinct goes on overdrive.
Yeah.
So it's like I have a hard time turning down work.
Right.
And I feel uncomfortable not having two projects going on at the same time. Because if the shit goes down, somebody's gonna hold you down. But if you only got one stream of income, like I don't know what the word I would use for that is.
Well, I mean, it's definitely like a backup, a redundancy.
Right.
A cushion. I don't know.
Like since I left Rockstar, this is how I've been working. Like I always have two jobs, at least.
Good.
So like if somebody slows down, the other person can toss you more work. But like once you do full time, then I think it's good to have some kind of outlet for yourself to like branch off into.
Sure. Okay. So you're saying you have your job, and then whatever project you're working on that you're being hired to do, or are you talking about a personal project?
Personal project.
Okay, that has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
Okay.
So after all the contract work believes itself out, I'm like, all right, so those on sabbatical, don't call me.
Right.
And then I'll start doing my own stuff again.
And is that where you sharpen the saw? Is that where you try new things, or is that where?
Oh, definitely. That's when you sharpen the sword. You don't have to appease a client. The only client you have to repeat is yourself. And you sort of come up with something creative that you could bust out and complete fast.
All right. So, this is interesting to me because, just the way that artists work, it's really interesting in this current environment because, we hear stories about, VFX artists getting laid off from these companies, stuff getting outsourced to China, or
man, VFX has always been oh my
Pakistan,
god, I used to want to make movies. It's like it was my dream to do VFX. Then I started to meet those guys and see how I was going for them.
Yeah.
My gosh. Dude, that shit is treacherous.
Oh man. So it's more treacherous than games or work for McFarlane Toys or something.
Oh, no doubt. Okay. And the globalization of it, and the fact that they never unionize. If you talk to a costume designer, if they make those cats working out a minute over 8 hours, they got to pay.
Right.
The VFX don't have no such stipulation. They don't have a union or a guild or anything like that.
Huh, okay.
And they're discouraged to do so. It's crazy.
Jeez.
I think games have gotten a little better, but even then, man, those idiots you used to ship the work off to, they're good now.
So wait, who do we know that's still really in that world? Is Josh still? Is that what you would call him?
Josh,
he does
I think Raph does it from time to time.
Uh-huh.
Well, Josh found a niche. He's in the pre-biz area.
Right, and that's a pre-visualization for those who don't know.
Right, so it's not as grindy. But his skill set just traveled a long way. I'm yes, good going, Josh.
All right, I'll get him on here too, because we
ask him about his stand-up.
Ah, yes. And you know what's funny? What's really hilarious to me? Back to the stand-up thing.
Yeah.
When I ran into Josh, and he's like, "I do stand-up." The exact same feelings I had from John Mile way back in the day. I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? He's out here in Pacific Beach talking to people and doing comedy. I can do that too."
Yeah.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah, it was pretty funny when I saw it.
Oh God, I gotta. Raph said he was going to do stand-up one day, and he never did it, so I might have to find a comedy club out here and actually drag him to one. So we can both do it.
I have a hard time seeing that.
Who,
but
me,
I would love to
me
see
or Raph?
Raph. I don't know why.
Yeah, it'll definitely be funny just to see him doing it, just because he's an interesting dude. I don't know what he would come up with. Because one thing about comedy and stand-up is how people are isn't necessarily their stand-up routine. You know what I mean? So, like if you talk to somebody like Seinfeld, if you see a lot of his really candid interviews, you're like, this is kind of, morose individual.
But that's his stand-up, though.
But his stand-up was a little livelier. You see the transition when he goes to stand-up. I guess what I'm getting at is there's a different vibe, a different switch over from the act and the person. So when you see
talking about a character,
anybody, if you see the act, if you see the act first and then you see them normally, you can kind of say, oh, okay, I see those two different sides of them. But it's like seeing Michael Jordan in interviews versus really seeing how he is on the court.
Oh my God!
You know what I mean?
Did you see The Last Dance?
I haven't started seeing it yet, but I know a lot of the stories. I need to find out a way to watch that. But that's that kind of switch up I was talking about. Yeah. Yeah, I totally got to see that. I don't have ESPN or it's going to be on Netflix, right?
Yeah. I don't know when they're going to put it out though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was for 5 weeks we had something to look forward to on Sunday. That was cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I'm trying. I actually dropped Netflix a little while ago, just so I could get my focus together.
Yeah.
I'm existing now on Amazon movies and the Amazon originals.
I kind of dig Amazon's movies, man.
Yeah,
I got Amazon and I got Shudder. Shudder's the shit.
Shudder.
Shudder is the horror channel they have on Netflix. On Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That holds me down right there.
Very cool. So yeah, it's crazy. We're always talking about the streaming wars, and it's crazy with all these different services out there now. Just how Disney Plus, Hulu, I guess they're kind of the same thing now. HBO Max, I guess that's going to be Warner Brothers' entire thing, where they're putting everything.
Yeah, Hulu could kiss my ass. Like, how you gonna give me commercials and I'll pay you for it?
Yeah, that's weird. I didn't like that. The first time I realized that, I think I'd seen the commercials before, but I hadn't consciously thought about it. Because I think I was sitting down and I was and a Ford commercial came on, and I was kind of thinking, I don't want a Ford. Why is this commercial even here? Get off my paid subscription service, you damn commercial.
I mean, I guess it's cool that they don't know what I searched for that day. They can't show me like some Air Jordan commercials.
Yeah. Because
that gets annoying. Like, I'll just look at some shoes. I'll pop over to Facebook and I see those same shoes. I'm like, dude, come on. Yeah.
No, I'm totally in the Facebook ecosystem, so I get it all, and it actually takes work for them to stop. Oh, and if I buy something, it's all over.
I think with Facebook, once I pruned my feed to where I like it, it was good. So I got my science, animals, art, movies, sports. It's good. I got a few homies that say shit starts to pop off at the Gaza Strip. Like, I gotta block certain people.
Yeah, right.
Certain amount of time, because, kind of posted too much politics.
Yeah, no, the snooze for days is a great feature. I was like, man, when the election came around, I was like, kill this guy, unfollow. Well, not unfollow, the snooze, and they just disappear. And then what's funny? What's funny is when they come back suddenly. It's like you put somebody on mute, and then when you turn the volume back on, they're like, furthermore, and you're like, huh? Wait, I forgot you were even around. How's it going?
You didn't see what I posted? Hell no, I didn't see what you posted. Was it a cat? Was it a bird?
Exactly. Nah, man. The whole mental health online thing, and staying sane online, serious business.
Yeah. No, it's a very terrible thing.
Yeah. So
especially now, if you're online now and all you see is negativity, and you're just in your house by yourself, damn.
Oh man,
I hope you don't have a gun.
That's how you get angry at life.
Yeah, seriously.
Now
you think the whole world is that.
Now, speaking of social media, you've I was looking for stuff on your Instagram, and you're not very big on there like a lot of the other artists.
Most of the stuff I do, I can't show. And the last thing I was working on was a dirty girl.
Okay.
Who is also the face of my wife.
Okay. Oh, with the orange glasses.
Yeah. So every time she come in the office, she'll look and wonder why her ass is so big. I'm like, yeah, I made it bigger. Just because I could.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I need to finish up. It's like that. I had a She-Hulk I was working on. That's Rosario Dawson. For some reason, I think she would be an awesome She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I think it's the jaws.
Okay.
Yeah, she looks substantial, but
So are you saying you would post more, but you just?
I can't show everything. thing. Like, I'd say 20% of the stuff I've done, I've shown. Nobody wants you to show their shit.
So even after the project is complete.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
So like McFarlane, when they would finish something, I'd wait until it went in production, and he would buy it, then I'd show it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like if they show something of it, then I'm like, okay, I can show mine now too.
I see. That's got to be frustrating, right?
A little bit.
Okay.
You know, it's like, oh, Marcellus had been doing shit all year.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like with my side of things, I get kind of dodgy when I'm talking about the ins and outs of how a game actually works, because then you start getting into trade secrets and stuff. So they don't like us talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like if something happens and someone's like, dude, this guy, he always does this and that and that. It's like, no, he doesn't. I'm sitting here and I can like break down exactly how it works to them.
Yeah.
But I can't. You know, because then, and I won't get into who, when, and where, but at one of the companies I worked for, some guy showed up on a message board and actually answered a question and said, no, you're wrong about this. It works like this. And that guy got fired.
Oh,
and what was weird is we were kind of like, yo, how did they find this random video game message board and know? So
other people that comment the boards.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was kind of weird.
That with social media all together, like I'm usually pretty strict about when I post. You know, remember when me and my wife started dating, and she would like want to tag me in photos. I'm like, no, don't tag me. Like, like no, I can't. You have to control what people see.
Yeah, I get you.
Anybody can be reading that and get the wrong idea.
So now you So okay, now we were talking about personal projects a second ago.
Yeah.
Do you have anything coming up or anything you're thinking about doing?
Like I'd like to say I want to finish that Derby doll, but that's a game character, and I don't really feel like doing that too.
Yeah. So the reason I'm asking, because we touched on it a little earlier, but the whole creative process of having an outlet, and especially now during this coronavirus thing, maybe not even your art kind of work, but what do you? Oh, you said, wait a minute, you said you were grilling up stuff.
Oh yeah, boy, yeah. I've been wanting to get a grill for about a year now. I finally bought one. Yeah. And so since this whole thing started, we ain't got no choice but to cook. So I've been like trying to cook a bunch of Cajun food, trying to slow cook a lot of meats.
Did you go gas or you got a?
Oh, I got the charcoal, man.
Okay.
Charcoal.
Just checking in.
Sorry, Hank Hill.
Just checking in.
The charcoal with the wood.
Yeah.
Wood chunks. And every time we go to the grocery store, I try to find some good meat.
Nice.
Yeah, I tried some chicken breast last night, but like the charcoal went out too fast, and I kept having to put charcoal in there.
Yeah.
And I think the outside of it cooked way too hard. So like it's supposed to have like a light outside skin, but with like a tender inside that like rips apart.
Yeah. Now do you throw like are you one of the kinds that throws like mangoes and cherries on your grilled meats?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Getting there.
That's advanced. I did the mangoes once. I did the mangoes once actually.
How'd that turn out?
Let me see. How was it? It was little thin strips of mango, and we were just putting them on the grill. Like we slapped down some aluminum foil, and then kind of have them cook up a little bit, and they're soft enough where you still get like the grilling through the foil, so you actually still have some lines on it. because it's just that like sensitive or whatever. But when we started playing around with it, like after you get out your first couple burgers and your first couple dogs and all that, you start trying to play around with stuff. And like, hey, that next burger, throw some mango and onion in there, see what happens. It's like, really? Okay, let's see what happens. And it got interesting for a little while, but I totally fell off the grilling radar. I leave that all to Jeff now.
Okay.
That's
Street Pan got me into it.
Street Pan, I haven't heard from him in a while.
That dude will throw down on the grill. Oh my god. Yeah.
So that
he's doing okay.
Are you in a? So does your wife grill up and everything, or she cook, or is this like a team thing, or just you?
Nah, it's just me.
Okay.
She cooks though. She's mainly in the kitchen.
All right.
But I gotta try to use the grill so she can do it when I'm too lazy.
No, grilling suddenly. I don't want to say suddenly, but at least in my neighborhood, everybody's. I know the apartment complex down the street. I just believe everybody in there's got the coronavirus already, and they're just passing it on. Because every time I pull, if I pull, my little my garbage, my dumpster out to the side of the street, I'll just see somebody grilling up. You'll see like one of the neighbors and talk to them, and for about 6 feet apart, and they'll just kind of be together. And 10 minutes later, you'll see their entire family and eating food, and I'm just like, they still bring people together.
Yeah, man, you gotta stand around, preferably with beer in your head.
Well, I wanted to stay away, but I got to look real close to see what you're doing with that burger.
Dude, I actually smoked. The first thing I did was smoke burgers.
20 at some other points, and it's kind of wild. Okay, it went away, so now I think everything's back to normal.
Right on.
But yeah, man. So this is the ADD experience, and I wanted to get back to the heart of the podcast that we started back in the Payao days, and I remember I was trying to figure out a way to go with the 8-bit cubist thing because that was getting a lot of play versus the fun we were having with Payao. And when this whole coronavirus thing kicked off, I just really got to thinking about that podcast format, that feeling that we had when we were sitting down talking.
Yeah.
And that was really good shit. So I wanted to bring that back in a new refined format, and I had to totally separate it from what I'm doing with 8-bit cubist. So that's why this podcast is coming out the way it is. Just good discussions, but it has a loose idea of talking to people with, art, design, development ideas in their head.
Right on. Yeah, I like those old Payao podcasts. Like Stream of Consciousness chats.
Yeah. So that was me, you, Raph, Jeff, and we got Ryan in there once in a while, and Josh in there once in a while.
Yeah.
So between I'm definitely going to get back with all of those guys, and I'm going to do some solo shots. So it'll be a mixture of me just kind of riffing and me talking to different people that I know and respect even in the industry, just that I know and respect and can have a decent conversation with.
Dude, it's an interesting podcast, man. I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of them.
Yeah. It's funny. One of the most important things was getting my process set up so I can just kind of start in, do it, kick the files out to YouTube or to audio format. And once I got that process down, I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can just make this a part of my flow.
Yeah.
And that's the important.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, man. I'll definitely have you on again. Any ideas that you have? You're one of the creatives that I kind of look up to. You are, so you'll know, you're one of the most naturally interesting people I've come across.
Okay.
And no, just
I'll take that.
When we first met, I was like, who the fuck is that guy? Let me just make a note. He's an interesting dude. Need to talk to that guy more.
I remember when I met you, I was thinking, I remember calling my mother, and I'm like, Mama, there's 4 black people in the studio. I was excited.
Wait. So, okay, hold on. The 4 black people in the studio. Me, you, Frank, and Raph? AJ is
still there, too.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so, Frank was off in the cut, so, okay, I guess that's why. He wasn't always around.
I probably said 4 or 5, but I'm like, that was the first time it was more than just myself.
Yeah. Eric was there too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was he there when I got there?
Yeah, he was a midnight club doing the producer thing, so no one really saw. He kind of came in, did his thing, and left. So no one saw much of him either. And wait, you didn't start on Midnight Club, did you? You started on.
I started on Agent.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's why we didn't run into Frank and Eric that much. But yeah, okay. So
on RDR.
Yeah, so you're telling me you told your mom.
Yeah, because I was all excited because there was like multiple black people there, like people. I could say people.
Yeah.
So that's like whenever I look at a game studio or any company in general, like how is your ratio of people? You have a lot of women there. You have a lot of black people there. Because you don't have a lot of women, and that tells me that you may have a toxic work environment, or you may have like limitations in your scope.
Yes.
So, or it's like no people, it's like y'all slave drivers.
Yeah. Yeah, the old people put a stop to that.
Oh yeah. I gotta go home, man. I got a life.
Oh man, that is comedy. So yeah, you just reminded me, man. I'll give AJ and Frank. May have them on at some point.
Hell yeah, I'll be curious of the devil to see if you get AJ on. I haven't heard that cat in years.
Yeah, man. He's a good guy who made me angry on multiple occasions.
How so?
No, he just understand me. We're totally cool and everything, but he's one of those guys where it's like you send him a text and he doesn't reply, and then he sees you the next day. He's like, "Hey man, I got your text," and I'm like, "Why didn't you reply?" Didn't want to.
I mean, to his credit, back in the day, he had to like You had to press buttons like multiple times to get a letter.
No,
so I can understand not responding to somebody's text.
No, I totally love and respect the dude. It was just funny to me because, you know, he had such a way of going about things that just went against my way of going about things. So this is a personal thing. I'm having personal issues over here, and he's just exposing them. You know, so no, he was a cool dude, man. We hung out a couple times. I went down to his place in San Diego, and we worked on some projects. It was all good.
Right on.
Yeah. Are there? So I don't know where this is gonna go. I don't know where it's going to lead exactly, but you know, just getting the feeling back for the podcast, and you know, Joe Rogan left YouTube. I don't know if you heard about that.
He left YouTube?
Yeah, this just happened. Basically, he got bought out, or he signed a contract, I should say, with Spotify.
Yeah.
So now he's with Spotify. People are saying it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, $90 to $110 million deal, where he's basically going to put all of his content there. It's going to be like Howard Stern, you know, where Howard Stern's only on Sirius, and he has his market there, and they're locked in, and they're paying for his content. Same thing's going to happen with Spotify. Over time, we're going to start seeing the full-length episodes drop off of YouTube. We're only going to see clips, and I'm not sure how it progresses very far into the future, but we're not going to be able to get access to it without using Spotify.
I like the clips, though. That's the thing. Like, Spotify doesn't have video. How do you manufacture that?
They've been testing out video. They're gonna. So he's gonna be one of the pioneers of the whole video version of the podcast.
Oh, I see where they're going with that. Okay.
Yeah. So Tidal had video, or has video, and I know that was one of their major claims to fame, that none of the other audio platforms had video they could access. So yeah, we'll see how this works out, but nah.
I don't mind the guy. He's got an interesting interview style. He kind of morphs his thoughts to whoever he's interviewing. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And that, I'm not gonna lie. This, I'm sitting here taking notes about like, I like how he did that, and I'm up here trying to reverse.
Almost definitely.
I'm up here trying to reverse engineer his style and stuff.
It's like him. Mark Maron's pretty good. I like him a lot. But I can't think of any other interview podcasts that I get down with.
See, the problem with me with interviews is you get into you literally get into an interview kind of format where it's just like, hi, I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to pump your agenda.
Right, that's not interesting.
You know, so I wanted to do something with conversations where it was an advancement of regular shit talking.
Yeah.
So hopefully these will be interesting. I think we went over some interesting things right here. A lot of people into art and development will definitely dig on this. So that's my current angle. I'll let it flow a lot more freely than I do a lot of other stuff. But I think we got something good.
Right on.
Yeah. So how can people find you?
Let's see.
Oh, come on now. You weren't prepared to promote? So we got you on Instagram and ArtStation. I sent out your ArtStation link.
Okay. So yeah, Instagram and ArtStation is where you find Marcellus.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, if that's that, then I'll just put those two out there.
Right on. That works. All right, man.
Cool.
It's been fun, dude.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely good talking and catching up with you. Learned some things about your upcoming I didn't know about. So awesome stuff.
Yeah. All right, man.
Cool. Hey, appreciate the time, and I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later, man.
Peace. That was Marcellus Barnes. Great guy. hear that. Uh, as I said, this podcast, this episode thing is going to go on for be a little longer format than usual. So glad you're sticking with it. Hope the audio worked out for everybody. If there's any comments on any of this, how it's going, what you want to see more of in the future, and what we do, just let me know. Make sure you comment below so we can get this conversation going and continuing. This is the ADD Experience with Mr. Benja. That is MRBENJA. You can find me on all over the place. So get at me. Let me know what you're thinking. See ya.